Hi, this is Katie from Katie and the Squid. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet the Time Traveler scarf. So a while ago, I designed the Time Traveler cowl, and for a while now, I have wanted to turn it into a scarf. I used this safari chunky from King Cole to make a blanket not too long ago, my lock throw. And I really love the colors of it, and I actually had a few skeins left, so I thought that was the perfect opportunity to make this scarf, and I'm really happy with how it came out. I love the colors. I will link to where you can find a King Cole stockist. So for this project, I highly suggest either using the Safari Chunky from King Cole or finding a similar yarn that has the same self-striping effect. You really want a self-striping yarn for this project because it uses short rows, and you can see the triangles created by these short rows. If you use a solid colored yarn or a yarn that has very small color changes, you're not really going to see the short row effect. It's not going to have as big as an impact as if you used a long self-striping yarn. So for this project, like I said, it's a chunky weight yarn. You can substitute with a different weight yarn, and I do make some notes of how to adjust the size, because it is really easy to adjust the size if you need to by changing the number of stitches you start with and the number of rows that you work. So for my scarf, I used a J 6mm hook. If you do substitute with a different yarn, just be sure to use a hook that is appropriate for your yarn weight. So for this video, I'm going to go ahead and insert clips from my Time Traveler cowl video. The two patterns are very similar. The starting chain is the same. Obviously, this is a scarf, so we're not seaming at the end to make a cowl. And in the video, I will say cowl instead of scarf, so just be mindful of that. And then after that's over, I will just go over the differences real quick, because really the only difference is the amount of times that you repeat the triangle pattern, and you're going to end on a different row than the cowl. So I'll go ahead and insert those clips here. So in the pattern, it says to chain 40, but for my sample, I'm going to chain 16 because you can do any multiple of 4 if you want to adjust the size of the cowl. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 16. But instead of 16, you will have 40. So for row 2, it's super simple. You are just going to single crochet into the second chain from hook, and then you'll single crochet in each chain across, and you'll have 39 stitches. I'll have 15. So I'll go ahead and do that and show you what it looks like. Now for row 2, you're going to start your first short row. You'll chain 1 and turn, and then you will single crochet in every stitch across, leaving 4 stitches at the end, and that's why it's called a short row, because you're not going to go all the way to the end. So I will go ahead and do that. After you finish row 2, you'll have 4 stitches left here that you won't work into. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 4. Row 3, you're going to chain 1 and turn, and then you will single crochet into every stitch across. So for row 2, you will have 4 less stitches from the previous row. For my sample, I had 15, so that means right now I have 11. In the pattern, you had 39, so for row 2, you have 35. So I'm going to do row 3, which will be the same amount of stitches as row 2. So I will single crochet all the way across. So here is what it'll look like after row 3. Of course, your cowl will be a bit longer. So for the next section, it's simply a matter of repeating rows 2 and 3 until you have just 3 stitches left. So what we are doing is we are creating this first, that's the end, the first section of short rows, which is this triangle. So you'll keep going until you have just 3 stitches left, and you'll end on a repeat of row 3. So I'll go ahead and do that and show you what my smaller sample looks like. Here's what it'll look like after you have repeated that first section until you have just 3 stitches left. And as you can see, it steps up every time. So 4 less stitches each repeat of row 2 until you have 3 stitches. And remember, you will end on a repeat of row 3, so you'll end on this side without this side here without the steps. So for the actual cowl, that'll bring you up to row 20. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'll be on row 8. Next is row 20, which I'm going to pretend that I'm doing, and you will chain 1 and turn. And so basically for row 20, you are going to work across all of these stitches that you skipped or left unworked to make 1 row going down. And I'll show you on my sample here. So we'll be working this row right here. So for row 20, you will chain 1 and turn. You'll single crochet into the first 3. And then next, so that this step isn't, so it doesn't like buckle on you or pucker up, you are going to half double crochet into this first unworked stitch here. So that'll give it a little bit more height so that these line up a little bit better. Then you'll single crochet into the next 3, and you'll repeat that all the way across. So you'll half double crochet into this next one, and then single crochet into the 3. And then here I'm at the last step down, so you'll half double crochet into this first one here, and then single crochet into the last 3. So for the next couple rows, you're going to work into all the stitches. So that's what the first section will look like. You see it's a nice triangle. So for the next row, we're going to create this kind of open row here. So you'll chain, this will be row 21 on the pattern. You'll chain 1 and turn, and you'll work a half double crochet over these, half double crochet 2 together over these first 2 stitches. So you'll yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull through all stitches. So that's a half double crochet 2 together. Then you'll chain 1, and you'll repeat that half double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. And you'll repeat that all the way across. So half double crochet 2 together, chain 1, half double crochet 2 together, chain 1, all the way across. And because we have that chain 1 between the half double crochet 2 together, you're not decreasing. The stitch count will remain the same. And after the last half double crochet 2 together, chain 1, you should end up with 1 stitch left. Chain 1, so that was my last one. You should have 1 stitch left, and you will work a half double crochet into that last stitch. So next we're going to work 1 more row going all the way across. So you'll chain 1 and turn, and then you'll single crochet into each stitch across. So your stitch count is not going to change here. So we'll chain 1 and turn, which I already did. You'll work a single crochet into this first stitch, and then into the chain space, then into the half double crochet 2 together, and then in the next chain space, and you'll repeat that all the way across. I would stop after you do this row and count to make sure that you have the right amount of stitches, which should be 39, because it's really easy to miss maybe a chain one or a stitch here and there. So I'll finish this row and show you what it looks like. And here's what it'll look like after row 22. Of course, just smaller. I did count my stitches to make sure I still have 15, and you'll have 39, of course. So now you will repeat rows 2 through 22 until you have 13 of these triangle sections. So for the next section, our triangle, I'll show you on the sample. The first triangle went this way. The second triangle is going to go that way. So they're going to flip-flop each time. So I'm going to repeat row 22. So you'll chain one and turn. And just like before, you'll work all the way across, leaving 4 stitches at the end. And then you'll repeat row 3, single crochet all the way across, row 2, single crochet, leaving 4 stitches, and back and forth until you have 3 stitches left. So I will go ahead and make that section and show you what it looks like. So here's about what it'll look like after your next repeat of the short row section. So you can see it's going the opposite direction as this section before. So next I'll repeat row 20, which is single crochet into these first 3 stitches, half double crochet, single crochet in the next 3, half double crochet, single crochet into the next 3, half double crochet, single crochet into the last 3. So I will go ahead and do that. And really it's just a matter of repeating these sections until you have an odd number of short row sections. Next, you'll repeat row 21, which is our half double crochet 2 together row. So you'll chain 1, half double crochet 2 together, chain 1, half double crochet 2 together, all the way across. And you'll end with a half double crochet into that last stitch. Next, I'll repeat row 22, which is just single crochet all the way across. So hopefully by now you're starting to understand how these short row sections work. They'll mirror each other, so it'll go this way, and then this way, and then that way, and then that way. So for the scarf, you are going to repeat the pattern, so each of these triangles, until you have 19 triangles. And then what you'll do is you'll repeat the rows again and then end on row 20, which is the row that goes all the way across. So it's the 3 single crochet, half double crochet, 3 single crochet, half double crochet. So this is the end of my scarf. So in the end, you will have 20 of these triangle short row sections. If you'd like your scarf to be longer or shorter, you can go ahead and work you can work more or less of the triangle repeats if you'd like. Just make sure that you have an even number at the very end. Next, I'm going to show you how to add the fringe. So this is how much yarn I had left over from my last skein. So I'm going to go ahead and use this to get my fringe started. So this little cutting mat I found at the dollar store, and it just happens to be a good size length to cut my fringe. If you don't have this, you could use a piece of cardboard. The idea is you want the length to be a little bit longer than your desired length for your fringe. So this was the ball of yarn that I had left from my last skein that I used to make the scarf. So I'm just going to take my yarn and I'm going to start wrapping. And how much fringe you need is really going to be up to you. I'm going to go ahead and see how much of this yarn I can fit on this cutting mat, and then I'll show you how to cut it. I could probably keep wrapping to get more yarn on here, but I think that's good enough for now. So you have a couple options what you can do now. Since this is a cutting mat, I'm actually going to use a rotary cutter just to make it quick and easy. You could use scissors and just cut straight across. The rotary cutter is sharp, so do be careful of your hands. But all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my cutter and I'm gonna go straight across and hold your yarn down with your hand here so that it doesn't go flying. And then we have our pieces for our fringe. I'm gonna need a lot more pieces than this, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut up the rest of this ball. Once you have all of your fringe pieces cut, it's time to attach it to your scarf. And you'll notice I actually didn't weave in my ends because I'm just gonna go ahead and include that in my fringe. Might as well eliminate one step there. So how much fringe you add is completely up to you. I think I'm gonna start with 5 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm gonna see how that looks. You can play around with it and add as much or as little as you'd like. So you're gonna take however many pieces of fringe you'd like, fold them in half to create a loop, and then take your crochet hook. I'm just using the hook that I used to make the scarf. And you'll insert your hook into the end of the stitch. Put that loop around your hook and pull it through the stitch. And then you want to pull enough through here so that you have room to pull your fringe through the loop. Then you'll take I actually just take the hook out and put my fingers in it because that's easier. And then loop all of the fringe in and pull it nice and tight. And you can fiddle around with it to make it look nice and neat. And then you'll want to determine how many bunches you want to add across. So I think what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to go every other stitch and I'll add 5 more to this side. And I'll see how that looks, and then you can fiddle around with it to see what you like best. I finished my fringe here, and I'm happy with the 4 lengths of yarn added every other stitch. You also might want to note that I personally preferred picking the colors kind of at random when I added the fringe, as opposed to grouping all the colors together. Because it's a self-striping yarn, I didn't really like all of the colors grouped together, so I kind of picked at random. But of course you do whatever you want to your scarf, but that's just something to keep in mind. So the last step is to trim the fringe so that it's all about the same length. Honestly, it's really not too bad, but I'm going to attempt to do this on camera working around all of my lights here. So what I have here is a cutting mat. And then I'm going to use my rotary cutter to cut straight across. Of course, if you don't have a rotary cutter, you could use just scissors and trim it till it all looks nice and neat. But I find this to be the easiest and most effective way. So my ruler has these measurements, right? So what I'm going to try and do is, because your scarf is going to go at an angle, what I'm going to do is try and line it up so that it's straight. Also trying not to let it drop off my table here, so try and line it up as best as I can. That looks pretty good. And then I want to straighten all of these out. If you find that your yarn has a lot of kinks in it, you can take a steamer to it and just try and get those pieces of yarn nice and straight for you. Mine aren't too bad, and I think it's because I had it rolled up in a ball, so it's actually pretty straight, so I'm not going to do anything to it. And then I have this quilter's ruler, and you can't see it because it's clear, but it has measurements on it, and I just like it because it has a nice straight edge, so really anything with a straight edge will work. So what I want to do is working around my lights here, so I want to line it up so it's nice and straight on the bottom of my fringe here, and then I can kind of pull this up to straighten out my fringe. And I want to try and get things as straight as possible. And let's see, this is 6 inches, and I'm gonna try and make my fringe just slightly longer than that. So I'm just gonna scoot it down. And I think that's pretty good because a lot of my shorter pieces of fringe kind of end there. So now I've seen people use like pieces of painter's tape to hold this down. I couldn't find my painter's tape, so I'm just gonna go for this. And I'm gonna even things out here. You just wanna fiddle with it until you're happy. Just try and get things as even as possible. So I think that looks pretty good. And once you're wearing it, you know, you're not gonna see that it's exactly even. Actually, I held this up and it really didn't look too bad, but we're gonna do this anyway. So I have my rotary cutter and I'm just going to go across, and you'll have to do a couple passes, or at least I will, because I have all this yarn. It's not gonna go through all of it. And then I'll just wipe that away and get anything that I missed. And there it is, nice and straight, and you can straighten it out again and see there's like little pieces poking up there. I can just cut those off, watch your fingers. Especially the pieces underneath, they like to hide. And then I think this could be a little straighter. I'm actually gonna use the ruler. And it's always a good idea to err on the side of caution. You know, if you're not quite sure, you can cut it longer and then trim more later if you need to. And you can fiddle with it until you are happy with how it looks. And then when you do the other side, just try and keep them about the same length. And then you're done with your scarf. So here's the finished scarf. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. If you did, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.